Welcome to the Profitable NDIS Provider Podcast, where we're joined by your hosts, Tania Gomez and Paul Bryan. In each episode, we'll be sharing valuable insights and tips to help you turn your NDIS business into a profitable venture. So whether you're just starting out or looking to take your business to the next level, you've come to the right place. Let's stop surviving and start thriving.
G'day everybody and welcome to the Profitable NDIS Provider Podcast. My name is Paul and I'm here with my amazing co-host Tania. How are you doing today?
I'm really well, Paul. Thanks so much for being here today. I'm really excited to talk about the wild ride of change and secrets to mindful leaders. It sounds like a very exciting episode. And I'd like to introduce Val. So Val has seen the future and it's systemized. Val talks of leaders able to lean on their systems with full confidence that they've been able to build to make their business not just work smarter, but also harder so that they don't have to. From digital transformation journeys and organizations' destinies to the role of trust in process teams and technologies, Val's perspective is refreshing, bold, and crucially actionable. So that's a pretty big, pretty big claim there, Val. I love it.
It sure is. Thank you so much for having me.
Before we jump into it, do you want to tell us a little bit more about you and your business?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So look, Via was born a few years ago, so we're still quite a young company. And it was born from us witnessing a few different patterns in the industry around digital transformation, technology, and just business growth and scale in general. And what we saw is we saw a lot of business leaders look at technology as the silver bullet to solve a lot of problems. And it is certainly powerful. However, what we are seeing a lot is that technology alone isn't enough. Even if you do the best job that you possibly can at picking the right software for your needs, you still need really strong attention to process and to people. So to us, people, process, and technology is what creates a system. And for us, a system and technology are two slightly different words as well. A system is what really will allow your business to scale and grow. So technology becomes easy, in our opinion, once you pay attention to the people and the process side of things. And that's what Via Technology really aims to do. It really aims to facilitate businesses' growth by allowing them to create a platform, a system intentionally designed to deliver an experience, more so than just make your admin faster and save you $1,000 a year.
Yeah, cool. Look, I got to see firsthand at our summit that we had in WA, where you and you guys came in and did an amazing session around helping people understand that technology isn't really just always the driver for systemization and processing your business. Could you give us a bit of an example about how focusing on people and process leads to better outcomes rather than just going straight for the new tech, the new shiny thing?
Yeah, 100%. That's a great question to start with. And one of the ways that I like to answer this is starting with a bit of an analogy. I'm very visual, so analogies work in my brain. If you think about change and digital transformation and business growth as a journey, and you think about your car, your vehicle as being the technology, you then need a map to understand where you're going, and that'll be the process. And then you have the people, so the traveler. So if you just focus on the people, you're going to have a traveler that walks aimlessly, spends a lot of energy and effort, and maybe gets nowhere. If you add a clear map, so you have a clear vision, you understand how your processes work and you've mapped them, you then have the ability to make the journey shorter because you can see the map and you can see the shortcut and you can see the most efficient way to get there. And when you add the aid of a vehicle, of a car, you can get there faster. But if you start from the car without a map and without the traveler in it, yes, sure, you're maximizing and you're going through a very fast journey, but where are you going and who are you taking with you? So that's one way that we like to explain that analogy. I guess as far as an example, it's really hard to pick one, to be honest, because we see it all the time. One client that really comes to mind about on this topic is a company came to us last year, and the problem they presented, the symptom they presented with was our technology isn't really helping us. We need a new piece of software. Can you please help us find a new ERP? And they were both a disability and an aged care provider. And we had a bit of a discovery workshop, and we had a bit of a hunch that there was more to the story than that. So we did a business audit, and what we actually found was that the technology they had was actually the right one already. And what essentially we focused on was really mapping their business, really identifying where the bottlenecks were. And also we did a fair amount of work on the organizational chart, the different management roles, the key outcomes that each role was supposed to deliver to the business, and also the success metrics. So how do we measure success for each of those roles, and how does that align to the broader business vision? Once we did that, we then came and did a technology assessment again with the outcome of finding a new software, and actually found that the software they already had met pretty much all of their success metrics back then. So the CEO was able to then present to the board and say, we actually had a look. We have the right technology, although it didn't feel like it at the time. And with these tweaks that became simple because we mapped everything, they were able to get the uplift they were looking for without spending hundreds of thousands on purchasing and rolling out a new software. So
wow, that's really interesting, isn't it? Because I feel like people just want to blame the system and the tech system as opposed to blame the process very often. Yeah. That it's
100%.
And I've worked in organizations where I've gone in and they're using a piece of software, and I know it's a great piece of software, but I also know that there's no way I'm ever going to convince the people that the system's going to work. So we now just have to change, even though the system is perfect. Yep. They're so disgruntled now because they've been using it so wrong, because they set it up so poorly, that now they've lost trust in the system. And so the only way to get them to start using a system is by promising them the new system is going to be better, which actually just means we're going to roll it out better, we're going to set it up better, we're going to show you how to use it, you're going to have better training and onboarding so you can actually use it.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head there, Tania, that sometimes we have to accept that that's the case and there is a loss of trust. But you can still, and I'm sure you do, because you've already said that you do, you can still use that opportunity to bring to light all of those other elements that haven't quite worked the first time and make sure that they work next time we roll out a new technology. Yeah.
So talking about, transformations and moving to new systems, what are some effective ways that leaders can ensure that everyone is on the same page and I guess committed to that idea of a vision before you're actually implementing a major shift?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Well, obviously, if everyone agrees that technology doesn't work, you've got to win. But even in the cases where that's not there, I think, again, it's the people element that really we focus a lot of attention on. And it's often where most of the uplift can be found. So to get your people aligned and collaborating towards the same outcome, one of the secrets, which is not really a secret, but it's a secret, is we use a few tools and techniques. One of them we call the North Star. So we take the business vision and we distill it a little bit further into what actually is going to make that vision happen. Is it more communication between the admin team and your clients? Is it the experience that you're giving your participants? Is it streamlined billing? Because that's the pain point. What is really the North Star we're driving towards? And that helps take the vision that the leadership team usually have, which is quite business focused and sometimes fluffy, to something a little bit more practical. We then go and bring that vision over onto what are the key management roles, for example, and how does that vision translate to each of those roles? What does it mean for the head of operation? What does it mean for the head of finance? What does it mean for the head of delivery? And then we bring it further down. What does it mean for the team leaders? What does it mean for the support workers on the ground? What does it mean for each layer of the organization? And let's make it practical. And one of the key is to involve key team members from each layer of the organization in this process. So they get to craft that vision for themselves just as much as the leadership team does. Of course, leadership needs to drive this process. And in our opinion, gathering those perspectives as part of the vision process is what actually helps teams be aligned.
I just want to touch on that quickly because I've worked in lots of different sectors, but I've never seen a sector who dislikes tech as much as NDIS providers. As far as when I say dislike, it's probably they don't dislike it. It's that they don't really understand it because they haven't come from a background where they use it all the time. And you have a lot of, I even have clients who don't have computers, that they use email on their phone, and that's really it. That they might have come from a nursing background or a support work background where they're really great in person providing supports, but sending an email, setting up a system, a document isn't things they're used to. And so I've seen in the disability space more than anywhere else that often the leaders actually don't lead this. They actually are like, this is the admin person's job to roll this out. That's something they need to do. I'm never going to use the system because I'm just going to use my phone, but everyone else needs to keep their shift notes in that system, or everybody else needs to file their payroll, their timesheet via Xero, but I'm never going to do that. And I think that's one of the biggest issues I've seen with actually the adaptation of technology in NDIS is that it's really hard to get the leaders buy-in because there's this resistance, whether it's fear that they can't do it, whether it's, that they don't want to do it. For whatever reason it is, it seems to be quite common that it's the admin person who might be younger, who's might have just finished school or, might have just finished a TAFE course. They're the ones pushing to get a system implemented because they know that there has to be a better way than just emailing everybody. And they almost have to drag the leader or the owner on this journey. Have you seen that as well?
That's actually amazing. And when we talk about change and change resistance, so often we focus on the teams and on middle management, but you're absolutely right. A lot of the time it's the leaders. And so I'm curious to see what you've seen work in the past in those situations, because it's a very interesting one. I have an answer in mind, but I'm very curious what your experience was, and yours, Paul, as well, because I'm sure you've seen it.
I think from my perspective, you just have to really show them why they have to do it. And they have to hear from many different people that they're responsible for that thing. So I have one client in mind, and I won't name them because that's not nice, but their compliance person called me and said, you have to tell them. So I had to. Then they went and saw somebody else, like a business coach type person, and they had to tell them it was important. Then we all went to a conference, and the person at the conference said it was important. And so they heard it from multiple people that actually you now need to do this. You're at the business size, that you're just inefficient how you're doing it. And the cost of that is actually the human cost to the participant, that the service delivery outcomes are less because you don't have good documents. And so you have to really match what do they care about and show the value in the system based on what they think is important, because for them a system and technology and documents isn't important. Audit's not even important, don't really care about that, but they do care about the participant getting a good level of service. So you have to show the parallels quite directly.
Yeah, no, I've seen very similar things. However, when I usually have someone come to me, it's because they've realized that they just can't manage, but there's usually a level of fear around, going into something that makes them feel like, for instance, a provider who maybe have left a large organization where it felt like a machine, and often they're worried about their business feeling like that same machine of just everyone becomes a number and that sort of stuff. But when we then sit back and look at, well, this now lets you exponentially do what you love doing. It helps you get more results with a simpler process. That's where the shift often comes, is go, right, well, we want to do this, but we're we're dropping the ball just over here. That's what we need. That's what usually starts the conversation. And usually there's some form of system or process which is going to allow them to create something that's standardized, but still allowing them to have that individuality in their support. I love how you mentioned, you know, it is at different levels, different people have different responses to systemization and technology. I'm wondering, you know, whether it's a leader, and we just mentioned, Tanya, you were talking about that, you know, the compliance person was like, please, we need something, right? They were, I guess, were the leader in that position. What are some effective ways, Val, that people can, you know, lead people and get people on the same page to put that vision in place of what they're wanting to do, but implement that change and make that shift happen?
Yeah, I think one of the things that come up for me on this is, first off, I want to touch on, you just said that compliance person might be a leader in that situation. They may hold the position of leadership, but they also may not have it on paper, but they are still leading that particular change. So first off, I would encourage everyone to consider themselves a leader if they are in that position, even though you might not have that on paper. One of the other elements, and Tania touched on it earlier as well, is for us, it's very important to separate the system from the technology. And that is also what helps teams get on the same page and get on board for this major shift that involves technology. Is it's not just about implementing technology, it's about creating a system, a framework, a structure that then allow us to be free to treat each situation, each client, each incident with the attention and with the specific nuance that that particular situation requires. And that is what I find is the most effective way to get the message across, both to leaders and to teams. We're not just putting in place a piece of technology that's going to lock you in place. We're going to create a system that provides you enough support so you can manage whatever situation is thrown your way.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So how do we get, you know, teams on board with this? And I guess open, honest input from teams. Maybe, you know, you may just have a few people on team who are needing to be part of this change, but sometimes these organizations might have 20 or 30 people that might be involved in this, and lots of different opinions, lots of different suggestions on what could be done. How do we have some, how do we get that ball rolling? And especially when maybe good feedback isn't always available or honest feedback isn't always freely given.
Yeah. Look, I'm not going to lie. Company culture is a very key consideration that companies need to make when they're talking about change and digital transformation. We have to at least acknowledge where we are as a company in the culture space. And if the culture isn't as, you know, the best it could be, maybe even despite the best efforts of the CEO or the leadership team, one of the keys is to acknowledge that and work with it, as opposed to not acknowledging it and going, we sent out the survey and nobody responded, so that means they're happy, right? Not always the case. Sometimes, but not always. I think from a practical perspective, of course, formal opportunities for feedback are important, and it's part of the structure of the process that we also follow. But we have found that informal opportunities are actually more powerful. They let either, whether an external advisor is involved, a lot of the time that's a help as well. But even internally, from a manager going to ask for feedback to an employee, or the other way around, moving that conversation to an informal setting sometimes is just enough to let a little bit more of the honest feedback come through as to what really matters. So we usually try to recommend formal and informal. Something as simple as spend more time around a coffee machine or go out to lunch. There's a really interesting book. I think it's called, I'll have to look it up, but it's called something along the lines of Never Eat Alone. Not necessarily about manager and employee relationship. It's more broad, but it speaks to the fact of taking every opportunity one has to build on those relationships, to strengthen those relationships so that more honest conversation can be born out of that. So I'd say if a leader sees that their company culture isn't quite where they want it to be and there's not quite as honest feedback, acknowledge it first, work with that lens in mind, and try to take the meeting offline or offsite.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I guess many times when you're rolling out new systems, if you haven't done it before, if you don't not familiar with change management theory or different strategies for doing that, I think one of the pieces that's often missed is just the capabilities of your team, and realizing that actually if you've got a workforce of 50 people that is kind of like the bell curve, you're going to have some people that are going to love it, you're going to have some people who don't want to do it, you're going to have some people that you really have to force into it, you've got some people who just aren't going to do it, and that whole bell curve of, okay, we can't just have one strategy for rolling this out, that we can't just assume that everyone's going to love it and they're going to follow it. We're going to have to actually go, okay, well, let's choose someone who's the most enthusiastic to be the advocate or the champion of it, and maybe that's that compliance person or the office person or whoever it is that loves systems and tech. Get them on board with it, get them championing it and get them using it. And then go, okay, what about the 10 staff who are kind of like, maybe, do we do, one training session for them? What about the 20 staff who have never used tech before? What other things can we do to support their digital literacy or their confidence or their, we talked about fear. How do we overcome that fear with them? And kind of working through at an individual level, how do we tailor this transition to different staff members, different roles, different ways they're going to use the technology, as opposed to just assuming we're going to turn on the system and everyone's going to use it.
Exactly. No, spot on again. I think you're actually right on the money again there. It's a lot of it stems from fear. It's human nature. We fear change for the most part, except the edge of the bell curve on one side, which is very excited about change. One thing about this is really about evaluating what's the right cocktail maybe of support that you as a person involved in this transformation need to put on the table. What are all the different ingredients that you need to put on the table for your team to grab as and when they need it? And what I mean with that is, although I'm not a massive fan of personality tests and putting people in boxes, there is a certain value to understanding, as you said, Tania, what drives a certain individual, what are they most responding to, and then developing strategies to work with that. So if you start from the perspective that there are 4 personality types, just to keep it simple, you can say, okay, how do we use this? So someone might be motivated by time efficiency and cost that might maybe sit in the leadership team. So what can we put in place to convince them or to present this change in a way that speaks to them? And what type of training do they want to access? Maybe they just want a quick cheat sheet that just gives them what they need. Boom, get in, get it done, sorted. Then you've got the other end of the spectrum of maybe someone who is more people-oriented and is a little bit more resistant to a technology change or a system change. So that's where we go, okay, where does this fear really stem from? Is it, have they tied their identity to their everyday tasks? And how do we work with that? And again, acknowledge that that's there and show them the uplift and their capacity to take on more opportunities where their skills, their expertise are even going to be more powerful because we are taking away a part of their job and letting potentially a software do it. But while acknowledging that fear is there, if you're talking about training material, you could even keep it as simple as let's present it in written format, video format, and screenshot after screenshot, step-by-step instruction. And you put all of that offering, all of that buffet in front of your team and then each team member can pick and choose what works for them. And it sounds like a lot of work. I get that. As I speak into it, I realize it sounds like a lot. But it really goes back to who do you have on your team and what's going to move the needle for them. And it really goes back to getting their input, getting their perspective, making them feel involved and asking what it is that you need, and then playing ball with that.
Yeah, fantastic. Look, I think there's, probably going to be a bundle of our listeners who are, a really small provider where maybe it's just them and a crew of support workers where they go, right, I'm going to roll out a new software and my team is going to have to use it. They can pivot on a dime, but then they've got to get their team on board with actually, if anybody out there right now, actually getting your team to do their shift notes is a process. Making the system easy is a really important thing there, right? All the way up to providers who, they have multiple locations and software managing, the administration of multiple locations and pools of support team. And it's amazing that it really is just the same process on the way through, just it scales. And we've always got the bell curve of people that are going to be, yeah, I'm in it, I'm going. And then the group of people are going, I'm not really sure, but I'm going to learn it because we need to do that. And other people are going, oh, this sucks, I don't want to have to do that. So I think you've highlighted a couple of really key points there. And it does, I think for a lot of people, they may even pull away from it because, as you said, that it does appear to be a lot of work. But anything worth doing is a decent amount of work because the results you're getting are usually commensurate to the input that you put in, right? And so you've highlighted a bundle of amazing things there. Look, thank you so much for joining us today, wandering through a few of those things around helping businesses to identify how we're going to create this process change, whether it be systems or people or processes. How does someone get in contact with you to learn more about what you do and how you help businesses with that?
Thanks so much for asking that. Best way to get in touch with us is connect on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is our platform of choice, so you can look for Via Technology, VIA, or connect directly with me, Valentina Coyne, or my partner Dorian. And we try to run this monthly as much as we can. We do run workshops there. So anybody can tune in and listen to us ramble about something that gets us really excited for half an hour or so. That's the best way to connect.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been really great to have a chat about the different side of tech, really around the change management side and how to get tech working better in your business and really working with, the mindset side of things. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us and I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks for joining us.
And for everybody else, we'll be back next Tuesday or the following Tuesday with another amazing episode. Please make sure you like, subscribe and follow on and tell one of your friends about our podcast so we can keep on sharing our message. Thanks so much and we'll see you soon.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Profitable NDIS Provider Podcast with Tania Gomez and Paul Bryan. We hope you found today's episode informative and valuable. If you enjoyed the show, please don't forget to subscribe, leave us a rating, and share it with others who could benefit from our insights. Until next time, keep thriving.